episode 55, Heart for Excellence, with none other than Mr. Marek Rudak.
And don't forget, Mr. DadU himself, Jeff Springer.
Mr. Jeff Springer, SuitUpMinistries.org.
Established 2018. I'm bringing up the t-shirt.
Guys, we had a great conversation about a wide gamut of dadhood. And of the pains, the excitements, the joys of being a dad, or being a son with maybe an absent dad. Might be, different experience in that absent dad. Whether geographically or just emotionally or both, right?
Right.
And so, I don't think outside of the Heavenly Father, none of us have gotten it right. And yet, with that reality of not getting it right, there's a lot of room for grace, healing, restoration. The Heart for Excellence podcast, again, we talked about, isn't about being perfect. It's about pursuing excellence, which means acknowledging where we're weak and how do we get better.
Yes.
How do we grow? And so with that thought, talking about dadhood, guys, how do we move on? How do we grow and evolve, if you will, mature, or even in some cases be restored as a dad? So, Jeff, I'm going to hand it off to you. If you can share a little bit. You shared a little bit about your, 7th grade, your dad leaving. You guys had a close relationship, 2 weeks apart until you would see him again. And that had its impact on our self-confidence as young men in a tough stage, 7th grade to 12th grade and a little bit beyond. But here you are today, wanting to impact dads, to be godly dads, to love their children, and to do it well. If you could share a little bit on this journey from where you were, 7th grade, to where you are when you made that transition.
Yeah. Well, there is no owner's manual. I mean, when you just...
Dadhood for Dummies, you should write a book.
Yeah. Well, first of all, none of us, like you said, we have all the answers. It's life experience, and then learning from those life experiences, and then sharing those life experiences. I remember like it was yesterday. My daughter is 31, and I remember like it was yesterday the first night we brought her home.
Yeah.
And I'm laying in bed after we bring her home from the hospital, and I realized for the very first time when my head hits the pillow that my daughter is not a puppy. That this is going to be a life for the realization that this is a life journey.
Yeah.
That you never stop being the dad. That it's continuous. And it can be overwhelming. For a young dad. I mean, I was 22.
Oh wow!
And it can if you don't surround yourself with others that have been there, and those that have kind of showed the way. And fortunately, I had a dad. You mentioned, got divorced when I was in 7th grade, but still maintained to be, in my life, showed me what it meant to be a dad. Still, to have that, that model for me. But in my in my career in education, I saw a lot of the opposite.
Yeah.
With children and students that would end up in my office having conversations where there was no dad, and there was the direct result of that was some of their actions and behaviors and so forth. But so how do you if you're that dad? We do dad universities, and we try to tackle all life stages. Been there, done that dads, granddads, stepdads, blended family dads, wannabe dads, you name it. Soon to be dads, been there, done that. Is trying to offer a message to each one of those those dads and those life stages, and you know, it is intentionality in wanting to be in the striving to be you know, that dad.
So as we were like talking 7 through 12, without the affirmation of our dads, we fly under the radar, or there's a degree of insecurity, which is always there, but it can be increased by not having a dad affirm you. Our confidence is shaken. And I think being a dad, we've got to do a better job of affirming our kids and being intentional, which is the word you used, on speaking life into them, affirming them. Mark, you said you joined the military.
Well, when am I beginning on the hot seat?
You joined the military because you didn't have a dad. You were still looking, in a sense, for that affirmation.
Obviously, I didn't know at the time, but looking backwards, that's what was happening.
You needed to be affirmed. Yeah. Is that right? Or expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, again, this wasn't conscious, it's just looking backwards. It's like, how does this make sense? You're just looking at, nobody in the military. How'd you jump over there? And the thing that kind of go back to, it's like, you know, when you watch the movies and you see these guys in the wooden uniform and it's like, they look so confident. I'm like, whoa, what if I go to the military? Am I going to be just like that? Sign me up! You know, and that in a nutshell is how I ended up in the military.
So men, maybe those men, because I perceive them to be real men, they can make me into a man.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all looking, because so many of us guys, I find, Jeff, we have an era, like we talked about the locker room, we all played sports to some degree, and we all talk about how, I mean, back in the 80s, I think it was, you know, the Village People and Macho Man, right? Macho Man. Everybody wants to be a macho man. And we would like have a lot of bravado, shall we call it that, in the locker room. We'd trash talk the other guys and brag how great I am.
Yeah.
But yet, the reality of it was I felt like crap, or I felt insecure, but I felt I had to talk myself up because really on the inside, I was so freaking insecure.
Yeah.
Would you say that is quite common or normal for a lot of young men?
And I think that plays into what kind of dad I think they feel, sometimes men feel you're really unworthy, you know, the responsibility of being a dad, and you know, being that daily active, devoted dad. I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. You know, I'm not equipped to be this father of this new human being that we brought into this world. How am I going to? You know, and it can be overwhelming. And so I think what happens is, you know, sometimes because the world says we're not essential, we start believing that, you know, and a lot of that falls on, you know, our life partner, our wife, you know, but
we abdicate to some degree.
Absolutely.
Or if you go on TV, like the average typical dad on the sitcoms, the clueless dad, he just sits, just watch TV, and he just says stupid things, and nobody listens to him.
Well, being present in the room doesn't necessarily mean being a participant, you know. And I think a lot of times we like you mentioned before, we can either be distanced, you know, absent, or we can be literally in the room and be absent, you know.
It was a great point that you brought up, Mark, because I remember the last healthy role model that I remember on TV as far as dadhood was Bill Cosby. Now, I know it's a paradox in the real life to the show, but he was respected, his wife respected him, the kids respected him, he wanted to provide for his family, he wanted to be a good dad.
He was daily active devoted dad.
Daily active devoted dad, acronym that Jeff Springer created for DadU, and I love it. But after that, we went to Tim Allen. Now, I love Tim Allen, right? Yeah. But he became the not so... you know, the smartest tool in the shed for tool man, right? He wasn't the sharpest tool. And so the wife was the more of the sensible one, the sharp one. And then we went to, I think, Al Bundy or something, right? And then the whole role of dad started. And then we went to Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
And we saw this degradation of the role of dadhood within culture. And I personally believe that's a spiritual warfare deal. Like, that's a spiritual attack, because you eliminate dads from the home, you create more insecurity in selfish men. Because as boys, we say, I got to protect myself, which creates selfishness in us. And I'm making, it's a big statement.
Well, when I was in education, I used to do, anytime I was invited to speak, I felt like I needed, because they knew I was a principal, I felt like I needed to do this public service or about education, the status of education. And I would always say that schools are not broken. I said schools are a reflection of the community. Yeah. And the community is a reflection of the churches. And the churches are a reflection of family. Yeah. And the families are a reflection of the dad.
Wow.
So where are the dads? So really what's happening in school wasn't broken. Families are broken.
A lot of Homer Simpson type of families.
Yes. And with the world telling us the message that dads are not essential, then sometimes we live into that as men. Yeah. And so because of our circumstances, maybe because whatever those maybe there wasn't the modeling or the a man coming aside us, to guide us.
And we like that. I know it says somewhere in the Bible, New Testament, I believe, about older men discipling younger men. Yeah. And we've lost that for decades now. It doesn't happen. It might be even for I don't know, last time churches were really engaged in discipling younger men. And we lack that. Jeff, you started Suit Up Ministries in a sense to create a venue for men to disciple other men. It's not exactly that, but to some degree you play a role in providing that relationship, or at least starting that conversation of men discipling or coaching dads in the role of fatherhood. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and why do you do it? What does it look like? What do you do?
When I first started telling men my age, my colleagues, that we were going to do this DadU University, inevitably their response would be, "Man, that is a great idea, Jeff. I hope you get a lot of those young guys." And I go, you know what? I hope you're right, but I hope we get a lot of you guys, because
it's always the other guys,
right? Well, because people my age have already, they think they're done, or they've been there, done that.
I've arrived.
Well, we become Christians, we don't stop going to church, And if you're a golfer, you just don't You want to be the best golfer, so what do? You take lessons, and you go, and whatever it is you aspire to as men, if we want to be better at it, we do more of it. So as dads, doesn't it make sense that we continue to, as iron sharpens iron, And so, DadU University is an opportunity. I say it's a fellowship opportunity, a discipleship opportunity for you to, if you're a grandfather, bring your grandson, bring your son, your son-in-law. Well, if you're, I've attended, my dad, 80 years old, sat in the back for 6 hours for our very first inaugural DadU University. 80 years old. So what does he have left to learn? Oh, yeah. But yet he's there, not only supporting me, being the dad, but wanting to learn how to be even a better dad at age 80. Yeah. And I lost my dad this past September. And so just 6 months after our first DadU University. And so literally up to the very end, he was wanting to be the best dad he could possibly be that daily, active, devoted father. So what DadU does is provides a platform. We don't have the answers. None of the keynote speakers, none of the breakout speakers come and say, "Hey, do this. I did this. You do this. Follow me. You'll be a good."
Simple 3-step process.
Yeah, it's to get together to commiserate a little bit and to share concerns and to see that even this guy that looks like he has it all together still struggles at being a dad, and still has questions about, am I doing the right thing? And, raising daughters, raising boys, being that stepdad, being that, blended family dad. There's not any one answer for that.
Hey, well, how would you define, right? Because we're using the word dad, and it just struck me a while ago. We talked about there is a difference between fatherhood or dadhood. So, what is the difference between dadhood and fatherhood?
Well, really, if you add the hood, they're more similar. But the difference between father and dad is, there's our Heavenly Father. We understand that. But there's when you talk about fatherlessness or fathering, there's a lot of men out there that are fathering children. But dad means I'm going to stick around. Mm-hmm. Dad means I'm not going to walk away. Dad means even if
it's a personal relationship versus an official relationship.
Right. It is like
obligatory fatherhood, dadhood. Man, I love you. I don't want to do anything else but be a dad to you.
Here's the check. Here's the check for whatever.
Yeah. I mean, father to me seems to be there's distance.
Yeah.
Where dad is.
Walking by
in some worlds they can be synonymous. In some pictures, you can look at a picture of a father and a son or daughter or family and say, "What a great father, what a great dad." But if you really want to go beyond and go deeper, you would say, "What a great dad you are. Thanks for being the dad," which means that you are doing those things, going beyond. That you are that intentional. That you wear that title, dad. That's really second to none.
Yeah.
As a man. I always said prior to being a dad, I was a coach, and and when a kid would call me coach, it was like, Coach Springer, and I wore that with such pride, but then when I became a dad. Nothing like it.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. And now I'm a granddad and of two precious grandbaby girls. And you realize in those moments that there's nothing more important.
Yeah.
Than being a dad.
Wow. You're talking, I'm watching the emotion on your face and hearing your heart, like the emotion being expressed from your heart. And you're sharing this, and I'm just like, I'll confess, I am totally in a different place. Because as you're talking about, I remember the first time I came home from work one day, and my daughter Emily, she comes wobbling to the door and says, the first time, she says, Daddy's home. And out of all the emotion, like you're causing me to go back to the intimacy of dadhood. Which is a close personal connection with your children. And that is the most powerful thing of being a dad. And Jeff, you talked about two things, which is a very sensitive topic for me. Because I took on more of the role of coach than dad. And in hindsight, it was a mistake of mine. Because the coach had a sense of vicariously accomplishing something through your children mindset.
Yeah.
Whereas a dad was staying behind the scenes and being the cheerleader and support for your kids.
No matter what the results are.
Thank you. Yeah. And
unconditional.
And I encourage, as we start winding this episode down, and I want you guys to think about this and then share your, and Mark, again, different, because you know it from your situation, and you hopefully in one day will be a dad.
Yeah, aspiring.
Okay?
Yeah.
And Jeff's a granddad, and I'm just an empty nester dad, right?
So 3 different point of views.
So I want you guys to share one piece of advice before we shut this thing down.
Yeah.
And mine is this. And a friend of mine had shared this with me. Trevor, you just need to learn how to be your children's cheerleader.
Yeah.
And cheerleader.
Yeah.
I was used to being on the football field and there were cheerleaders cheering me. Yeah. And it was about me.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
I needed to learn how to be my children's cheerleader.
Yeah.
And I'm learning how to do that now.
Yeah.
And it's not too late. It's not too late to engage your children. If your children are 30-something years old and you've been an absentee dad, they're going to put you through the grinder. And they're going to make you work to get back into their lives. But something deep down in their hearts wants you to be part. So if a man is listening to this podcast, reach out to your children. They are probably going to shut you down, reject you, and make you work to get back into their lives.
Yeah.
But you won't regret doing it and paying the price. But my one advice is this: become your children's cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
When the team is losing 50-0,
Yeah.
you still, and your child, it seems like is the 0.
Yeah.
They've got the 0 on the scoreboard. You cheer them on with all that you've got, and that is very personal to me.
Yeah.
So that's my one piece of advice. Mark?
So obviously there's much can be said, but I think that kind of to build on what you said is that to earn somebody's trust, especially earn it back, it's a lot of effort, it takes a lot of patience. So one piece of advice I had is found kind of like a workout buddy, somebody that can help you keep accountable, somebody can cheer you up when you feel down and you're this close to quitting, somebody that can check on you, he's like, hey, did you talk to your daughter, did you talk to your son? Somebody that encourages you to keep rising, even though probably early on it's going to feel like you want to quit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Suit Up Ministries, we talk about, Suit Up Ministries is based on Romans 13:12, that the night is nearly over, the dawn is nearly here. So put away the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. In other words, suit up. And so we say, every day God gives us is game day. Every single day is game day. So get off the bench, get in the game, suit up. And suit up for your kids. And, come on, men, suit up. And never stop being the dad, regardless of what the score is.
Beautiful. Guys, this has been powerful. Powerful. And if any man listening to this wants to talk to Jeff, suitupministries.org, right? Is all your contact information there, I presume?
Yeah.
And when you're holding different universities or conferences, all the information is there. Mark and I had the privilege and the joy of attending one about 3 months ago.
Yeah, so it seems like yesterday. But it was a fantastic event.
It was like a Class A event. The way it was put together and arranged, it was fantastic. Enjoyed being there. Look, great conversation. Bless you guys.
And talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
To God be the glory.
Amen.
Amen.